average North American spends up to 5 hours a day watching television. The North American prerogative is to have the best of whatever they possibly can. Now, wouldn't it make sense to you to have the best equipment for something you're utilizing 5 hours a day? Hello, my name is Naz.
I'm Marston.
And I'm Chris.
And today we will be distinguishing the difference between HDTV and standard. So what is HDTV? That's a question some of you might want to ask yourself. Firstly, HDTV can broadcast video digitally. Second of all, something you guys might know about, it has a higher resolution. For example, HDTV can screen images from 1280, 720, all the way up to 1920 and 1080. To put this into comparison with their friends in standard television, they can only screen about 720 to 480. Now, what this really means is HDTV not only has better picture, it has more distinctive color and lifelike images. Now it's up to you. Which one would you rather? Now let me get into more detail about the image.
I'm Googling images for cats between the resolution for HDTV 1280 by 720. And as you can see, the images are quite large with distinctive detail and color, as I stated before. Now let's look for standard TV 720 by 480. As obvious, the images are going to be quite small with less distinctive colors. Now, I wanted to get into further detail about what pixels really are. So they're made out of red, blue, and green values, each consisting of the binary bits we all know and love so much. Now, each color channel consists of 8 bits, equaling 1 byte. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this is only for regular standard TV, so this isn't for all TVs, including HD. Assuming you know binary, the darkest shade of a color is 0, while the lightest shade is 255, which is the highest number in binary, of 8 bits, of course. If you add these together, it equals 1 pixel. Furthermore, you don't just use these color channels for anything. As you can see here, I'm trying to make a shape within PowerPoint, and it uses the same distinctive color channels. And notice as I'm clicking around this color wheel, it never goes lower than 0 and never higher than 5. So keep that in mind while you're watching this video. If you want to recap the amount of pixels in a single frame we view, for example 1280 by 720 pixels, that is 921,600 pixels. And if that wasn't enough to blow your mind, something that separates HDTV from standard TV is that it only has 8 bits per color channel. As I mentioned before, it has 16.
Resolution is determined by the amount of pixels, the smallest point or dot that is displayed on an image. The word pixel is a combination of the word picture and element, meaning quite literally the elements of a picture. The way a person describes a resolution is to say the number of pixels in the width of the resolution multiplied by the number of pixels in the height of the resolution. For example, 640 by 480, as seen in the yellow box. Now, standard definition television is usually defined as having a display that is 640 pixels by 480 pixels. No matter how large or small the display is, that will not change, meaning a 14-inch television will have the same resolution as a 20-inch television if they are both standard definition. Now, a high-definition television is usually defined as having a display that is from 1280 by 720 pixels to 1920 by 1080 pixels, as seen in the red and blue boxes. An ultra-high definition television is usually defined as having a display that is upwards of 3,840 by 2,160 pixels, more commonly referred to as 4K. As you can see, as you increase the width and length linearly, the number of total pixels increases exponentially. Aspect ratio is the proportional relationship between the width and the height of an image. Standard definition television is usually defined as having a ratio of 4 to 3. However, there are formats where the image is letterboxed and made to look like the ratio is 16 to 9 by overlaying black stripes across the top and bottom. This is to ultra-high definition television.
Hello, my name is Marsden, and I'll be covering my portion of the standard versus HDTV debate. I will be covering TV screens at 480i. I will be covering interlace versus progressive scanning, the color depth of the television, and the power consumption of the CRT versus the HDTV. How the CRTs work is that they use electrons to rapidly span from one side of the screen to the other. Once the electrons reach the end of their scope, they jump back to the start of the next line, similar to that of a typewriter. For each unique point in the image, the power of the electron changes, which alters the luminance or intensity of the electron and chrominance of the image. This photo below demonstrates how luminance, image 1, and chrominance, image 2, come together in order to form the picture. The luminance forms the initial image by having the electron alter the brightness and the color of the television at that specific point in time. Televisions created up until the 1960s can only display luminance, which is why a black and white picture is produced. The importance of luminance and chrominance in the war of HDTV and standard TV is the amount at which it is sampled. We will be discussing chroma subsampling. The higher the sample, the higher the resolution in picture. Standard television uses 411 chroma subsampling, where high definition uses 422. This picture demonstrates the difference between the two chroma subsamples. As you can see, 411 has a lower quality in color and picture than that of 422. Not only does high definition have double the color depth than that of its standard definition brother, it also increases the quality at which your picture is viewed. Standard definition television differs from high definition television in more ways than one because of the way the images are composed. They're created in a totally different manner than that of a high definition television. High definition television displays the full picture through progressive scanning, or progresses through the frames pixel by pixel. Standard televisions take out half the image. Converting frames to a still image requires a process called deinterlacing, in which the missing lines are duplicated to recreate the information that would have been contained in the discarded field. Since the field only contains half the information of a full frame, the frames have to be played at twice the speed. However, deinterlaced images do not have the resolution of a full frame. In other words, a frame is not a field. There are two fields for frame in terms of time, but not in terms of the image. A field only contains half the video information, so it may be played back on CRT TVs or standard definition through the use of interlacing, where guesswork is done by the TV in order to create the picture. Interlacing works by playing two fields one after the other in order to create the illusion of a moving picture. This is in fact not the full picture, but merely two halves played rapidly, thus losing image quality. Interlaced video works in favor of a CRT because it takes some time in order for the electron to move into the next row. This helps create the illusion of a full picture because of the time it takes for the electron to pass into the next field is roughly the same time it takes for the next field to occur. Some artifacts, such as screen tearing and flickering, may occur because the television still has to compensate for the lost parts of the image. This guesswork is not always perfect and can cause issues such as this elephant, where the picture appears jagged. Other issues, such as screen tearing or rolling, may occur. Displaying interlaced television on an HD TV has the same issues. However, it is not apparent because the HD TV processes the image beforehand. The power needed to run a CRT television is much higher than that of a high-definition television. The results here show that the two cathode ray televisions run at a much higher wattage than that of the HD counterparts. CRT TVs have a high voltage anode inside which needs up to 27,000 volts, whereas today's high-definition televisions do not need such power. In summary, luminance and chrominance are sent upon one video signal, and interference is expected, where with digital video it sequences the images that are displayed one by one without any interference. Standard televisions can only display interlaced television which shows half the picture, whereas the high definition television can perfectly display the image through the use of progressive scanning and high resolution pictures. And lastly, the high definition television requires much less power in order to run. Thank you, and this is my portion of the presentation.
And there you have it. Now you're able to distinguish the difference between HD television and standard television and be able to appreciate what you, as a consumer, are paying for. Thank you very much for your time today.